Today we're going to start to compare what we know about all the cell organelles to a factory as a way to kind of help us understand the different parts. So there's a table that you can fill out. It's in OneNote. There's a Word document that's attached, or it's also attached in the assignment. Or you can make your own table. Totally up to you if you want to handwrite something. But that's what we're going to use to take notes for today's lesson. We're going to be reviewing all of the organelles that we've talked about and comparing them to a part of a factory. So far we've now covered all the different organelles, or the main organelles, that are in both plant and animal cells, and compared what makes them different. So today is kind of like a review and a practice way of doing that. To help us out first, we need to understand the word analogy. So this is something that you can add to your notes from before. An analogy is where we compare things. They show similarities and they help us understand things that might be a little bit more complex because it creates a simplification of the concept. So we can take something that we know already and we can create an analogy of it to help us understand or clarify the information that we're trying to understand. So today our analogy that we're going to be comparing to is a factory. So we're going to match up each organelle to a part of a factory. So first, so that we're all on the same page, and this is where you're going to get involved, is we want to brainstorm just all of the things that are inside a factory. It doesn't matter what type of factory, just what do you think is inside any factory? So go ahead, shout out answers, and I'll add them here. Do you need a hint? Alright, what do you think? What are all of the things inside a factory? It could be a high-tech factory, it could be an older factory. Great, so we had all sorts of ideas, things as simple as the walls and doors and building itself, to the workers that are inside the factory, machines, all sorts of vehicles that transport things around, the control center, maybe a boss or a manager, an assembly line and a conveyor belt, the cleaning or maintenance staff, storage rooms, a power source, maybe the factory is solar powered, a mail room or shipping room. All of these are great examples of things that are inside a factory, and we're going to use those to compare to a part of the cell. So each one of these would be matched up with an organelle. And that's the analogy that we're going to create to kind of help us take our understanding of a factory and use that to help us understand the structures of a cell. So as I mentioned earlier, today we are going to be taking notes, but we're going to be using this graphic organizer. So this is available as an editable document, or you can create your own if you want to afterwards, or if you want to handwrite. You have that option. So as you can see, each organelle is listed here, and then we're going to create a factory match. And then we're going to provide some information. Is it in a plant cell, animal cell, or both? And we're going to talk about what the function of that organelle is. For today's lesson, we're going to focus really quickly on kind of going through all the organelles and matching them up with a part in the factory. The functions you might have to come back to later as part of your exit tickets. So that can be found from your previous cell organelle lessons, so part 1, 2, and 3. But we will discuss them today, but we're going to move a little bit quicker than taking notes for those. Alright, so I'll let you get organized for a second here. If you need to grab your Word document, or if you need to set up a table, you can always press pause on the video and grab what you need. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the cell membrane. And so if you remember, a cell membrane is in both plant and animal cells. So I want you to think, why might a cell membrane be similar to factory doors or windows? So what is it that makes them similar? When we're comparing all of these organelles to a factory, I want you to think about it in terms of function. What is it about their function that is the same or similar? So go ahead, what do you think? So factory doors, windows, they allow things in and out of the factory. They have that kind of control. You can't walk through the walls. You have to go through a door. You can lock or close a door. You can open a door. So they allow the movement of people, workers, and goods in and out of the factory. That's the same thing for the cell membrane. It's kind of that outer layer of the cell, and it controls what goes in and out of the cell. So just like the doors in a factory. So the next one we're going to talk about is the cytoplasm, and how the cytoplasm is like the factory floor. So there's our matchup for that one. Cytoplasm is in both plant and animal cells. So what do you think? Why might the cytoplasm be similar to the factory floor? Or could it be something else? Would there be another match that might also work? So think about it in terms of function. So this is kind of the inside of the cell. The cytoplasm is where all the organelles are placed. It fills the entire space of the cell, which is very similar to the factory floor. All the machines are placed on the factory. It fills the entire factory, and that's where everything happens in the factory. It could also maybe be the air or the space inside the factory would also be a good match for cytoplasm. The next one is the nucleus. So the nucleus is in both plant and animal cells, and I would match this up to some sort of control center. In terms of function, why might that be similar to the nucleus? So think about that in terms of function. So you could go with a bunch of different answers. You could go with control center, maybe there's a boss or a manager or a main office. All of those kind of imply the same function, that they are controlling the operations within the whole factory. Same with the nucleus. The nucleus is the control center of the cell. The next one that's also in plant and animal cells is DNA. So remember, all living things have DNA, and it's matched up with instructions. So whatever the factory is making, so whatever they produce, they're going to have some sort of recipe or instructions or manual for whatever they're creating. Maybe it's a secret recipe. Think of that as the DNA, so the instructions for whatever they're producing and how the factory should function. The next one is the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or ER for short. So it's in both plant and animal cells. The rough ER, if you think about what it does in the cell, so it's transporting things along, but along that journey, you're making proteins and you're making lipids and you're detoxifying. So it's very similar to the assembly line in a factory. So those factory workers or machines are building the product that the factory is making, whereas in the cell, they're building proteins or lipids. So they're very, very similar to an assembly line. The next one is the smooth ER, so endoplasmic reticulum. It's in both plant and animal cells. Same thing along that assembly line. Oftentimes in factories, there's someone that is ensuring that everything that gets made is up to a certain standard, and that's called quality control. They're removing things that weren't quite right, or maybe there was a mistake, or they weren't quite good enough. So that's similar to the smooth ER. How is that similar in terms of function? Remember, the function of the smooth ER is to remove toxins, so to take away things that are bad. Similar to quality control. The next one is the Golgi body, or Golgi complex, or Golgi apparatus, but we are going to use Golgi body. So why might a Golgi body be like a mailroom or a post office? Think about it in terms of function. What is it that the Golgi body does, and how is it similar to a mailroom? So they're in both plant and animal cells. In Golgi bodies, they package proteins, sort and organize, and deliver to where they need to be in the cell or outside of the cell. So it's similar to a mailroom. They're going to package up products, they're going to package up mail, they're going to send it where it needs to go, either outside or within the cell. The next one is transport vesicles. They're very similar to the delivery trucks or some sort of transportation within inside the factory, like a forklift. So why might a transport vesicle be like a delivery truck? What is it about their function that makes them similar? So they both get things where they need to go. They both transport material. The next one is the mitochondria. And so mitochondria is similar to the electricity or the power source in the factory. It's keeping the factory running. It's in both plant and animal cells. So if you think about a power source in a factory, how is that similar to the mitochondria in the cell? Remember, the mitochondria creates ATP, or energy, that's usable for the cell. So they have a very similar function. The next one that we're going to talk about is, in both plants and animal cells, is ribosomes. So ribosomes, depending on your factory, if you're thinking of like a high-tech factory with machines, or if you're thinking of a factory that's got workers that create things, the idea here is that whether it's a person or a machine, they are building or producing something. They're creating the product in the factory. In a cell, how is that similar to ribosomes? So what is the function of ribosomes? So ribosomes build or create proteins. So they're both making something. The next organelle is the cytoskeleton. So kind of like your skeleton in your body, it's providing support and structure for your body. The same thing in a factory. The factory has beams and structural support inside it. So that's why it's very similar in function, is it's keeping that structure of the building of the factory itself. The next one is in animal cells only, and it's the lysosomes. So why might, like security or cleaning or maintenance staff, any of those, why might that be similar to a lysosome? What is it that they do? You've been trying to escape the lysosome in your game. It's trying to get rid of invaders or things that are waste. So think of it kind of like the cleaning staff in a factory. So the next organelle that we're going to talk about is in only plant cells, and this is the large central vacuole. So animal cells also have vacuoles, but they only have small ones. In this case, it matches up with a storage room in a factory. So how might those be similar in terms of function? Well, a central vacuole stores waste, water, and other nutrients that the plant cell needs. So if you think about a storage room in a factory, it's simply doing that. It's storing what the factory might need for later, maybe to be shipped out later, or the materials to build something. The next one is also only in plant cells, and so these are the chloroplasts. Chloroplasts match up with solar panels in the factory. So think about their function. What makes them similar? Well, this one is a little bit obvious. They both take in sunlight and convert it into energy. So in a factory, you're going to take in sunlight and you're going to convert it to electricity that the factory can use. In a cell, the function of those chloroplasts is to take in sunlight, convert it into glucose, and then that glucose goes to the mitochondria and they can use it to make ATP, energy for the cell. The next one is the factory walls and the cell wall. That's kind of an obvious connection. They're both providing the same function. They're the outer layer, they're support, they're protection. So they're both kind of matched up quite nicely to the factory wall and the cell wall. Cell walls are only in plant cells, they're not in animals. So what we've done is we've kind of made a comparison to the entire cell. We've created this factory world and matched up all of the organelles, like the assembly line as the endoplasmic reticulum, the lysosomes, the nucleus, they all have an equal match. And this is what you're going to end up doing for your final project. You're going to create or use your own world that you can compare all of the organelles to. And we'll talk more about that in the next couple of lessons we're going to be reviewing next time as well. So this is our complete factory analogy. So if you didn't finish your table, you'll have to go back and add the functions to all of the organelles, but we did match them all up to a factory part today. The second part of your exit ticket, so you're going to add your completed table, but the second part of your exit ticket is a Kahoot challenge. This is kind of a unique Kahoot. It's a Simon Says, Science Says type challenge. So I'm actually going to give you an example question to kind of show you what the questions will be like. It's going to be using the factory analogy. So for example, Simon says control center, science says mitochondria, nucleus, cell wall, or cytoplasm. So what do you think would be the best match for the control center? So what did we put next to that in a factory?